Hi everybody, Mature Simmer here. Welcome back to another in the series of the Non-Aviator Flight Sim series. What I'm going to cover this time, I want to cover this box here, its purpose, when you would use it, or what it does, so you can decide if you do want to use it at all. Because there's other ways to learn to fly other than going through the specific things in the sim. But this flight training is something that Microsoft provides that gives you something structured to go ahead and go through various pieces. So you go ahead and click on this, and it takes you in, and you can see you've got main sections. So you've got basic handling, and it kind of gives you a description, how to handle an aircraft, takeoff and landing, VFR navigation, visual flight rules. That means you're basically navigating by looking out the window and using your eyes. Then you can do gliders in the game. Obviously, those don't have engines. You've got to learn to do things like find updrafts and so forth. So this is not upside down rain or really tall grass. This is an indicator of wind that the glider's seeking out, and kind of, how you almost have to learn to see the wind to fly with a glider. Airliner training, because things are a little unique when you're flying large jets like this. Bush pilot, basically, more wilderness flying, if you want to call it that. That's kind of, I think, what Microsoft classifies it. But it tends to be small little aircraft. You don't have to fly these little experimental things in the bush pilot. You can do something like a Cessna here. I think that's what that is. And fly bush pilot things. But sometimes it dictates the aircraft. Sometimes it lets you choose in those areas of the system. But a bush pilot, basically, just think of it as kind of more non-structured flying. Like it talks about, gravel runways, mountain flying, landing in the water, taking off in the water, so forth and so on. And then finally, you've got IFR navigation, which is instrument flight rules. So when you can't see things and you have to fly by instruments, you want to be able to do that, especially because it's not uncommon that you may take off and you may be flying and suddenly you thought you were going to go VFR and you have an unexpected weather front that comes in, and now you suddenly are having to switch to IFR to be able to land because you physically can't see things because maybe the cloud cover's too low. And as you can see, I've been flying. I've got 700 hours in here. Most of these I haven't done anything with. A lot of it, honestly, was I came back in and I was just more kind of from the completion standpoint. I'm like, yeah, it'd be fun to do them and so forth. So I didn't do basic handling because I didn't know how to do it. I've done flight sim before I got into it recently, and so I understood all of that. But therefore, it allowed me to very easily, get a pretty high score. So if you go into any one of these, then you're going to see the individual sections. So I'm not going to load any of them up. I'm not going to do anything. But basically, you'd go through, you'd figure out, hey, yeah, this sounds like what I need to do. Again, they are in sequence for what they'd suggest you do. Because basically, you can see here, you've got an introduction, and then down here, you're reviewing the skills learned in previous lessons. Like this is, in essence, your final exam for basic handling. So you can see I had a little bit of difficulty with straight and level flight, and that's honestly because when I was doing these, it was before I had done a ton of flying and truly understood trim well. I think if I redid it now, it would be much easier to bring that up to an A and make this 100%. And honestly, I'm going to try that at some point because it's like, shoot, I should be able to do that. And you can see here, sometimes it's just that simple. Airliner training, literally 2 lessons. How to lift off an airliner and how to do final approach and landing in an airliner. There's no other lessons for you there. So, they're not always the same size, so forth, or different lengths. But, you can go ahead and they do add lessons. So, for example, you can see this is a new lesson, landing without an elevator, which means your back end that adjusts the pitch, which is basically when you pull back or push forward on your yoke, on your control when you're flying. If that stops working, they show you how to land without that. And that's a new lesson that they added, and so then that's why there was a new here. before. It gives you a very short understanding of what that is. They're just structured lessons that you can walk through, and you know it'll explain it to you, what it wants you to do, and you'll then have steps to follow and objectives, and you'll just get scored on how well you do, and that's it. So that gets you familiar at a base level with what flight training would be in Microsoft Flight Simulator. If you wanted to take a look at it, I will have videos on the channel where I'll show you all aspects of flight so that you can understand a little bit of how I learned it, how I understand it. And again, I'm hoping that it'll be a little more accessible to folks that don't have the aviation background, because my explanation, it may involve some of the more formal description that someone would have, but it's really going to be focused on just getting you to understand it in layman's terms. Because in the end, most of you are not doing this to get your pilot's license. If you are, you're not watching me, you're watching someone else. So for those of you that are watching a Non-Aviator series, you're just looking to enjoy flight simulation. And you can absolutely do that without fully understanding what everything is for and what it's doing. Because Lord knows I certainly don't, and I'm having a ball. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. If you've enjoyed this and you are also not a subscriber, please consider those things. And I will see you next time.